Mark, welcome, and tell folks who don't know where you are what's on your mind for Haima and for Hogan.
Hi, I'm sorry, I'm lying on my bed. I'm from Sydney. It's about almost 2 a.m. and I need to wake up for work in 3 hours. So, just a very quick question. What else should happen in Minnesota to call it a rebellion? Because to me, it's all people facing the federal, no police, no local government. So this is like my simple question for you.
Yeah. Well, I think the governor and the president have agreed, and we saw some of it last night, that there's going to be more local law enforcement. We had a member of the community on last night from Chicago who said the reason this hasn't happened in Chicago, and Hogan, there are a bunch of reasons why it's happening in Minneapolis, but one is in Chicago, the police are showing up where they need to keep the peace because that's not what the ICE and Border Patrol are supposed to do. We do have, amongst the many problems in Minneapolis, is they have a very small police force, both per capita and in terms of absolute numbers. It's just too small. I live in a city that has the largest police force in the country by far, and I believe also the largest per capita, which given the population of New York City is quite something. Minneapolis just doesn't have that. Now there's state police, there's county. They could be doing more, and I believe they will. And I believe that's going to make a huge difference because you look at these two incidents that we've seen now where people have died, there's no local cops around. And there should be, even with the lack of coordination, there should be. And hopefully the mayor and the governor will now address that. Haima.
Yeah, but I've said this since Mark. We've been talking about this. There's something going on in Minnesota that I just can't quite put my finger on yet. That's why. Look, when I argue this, I'm talking about the use of force. And to Hogan's point earlier about Barack Obama deporting and stopping at the border more people than any president in history. Well, the only thing that didn't happen is ICE officials and Homeland Security officials did not kill people on the street. It just was not the same sort of scenario. But I tell you this, you guys all the time. I've worked in city government a long time. It takes so long to recruit, train, and produce new cops. I remember we were in New Orleans, and Mitch Landrieu. If you guys don't know Mitch Landrieu, take a look at Mitch Landrieu, who's just a great Democrat, a great person who worked with the federal government to rebuild New Orleans, a person who actually asked the federal government to come into the city to help us get our jail under control and get the city of New Orleans under control. But here's the reality of those situations. When you go out and you recruit 250 people, you're going to get about 15 cops, maybe 10 cops out of that. And so what I'd like to see President Trump do in all of these cities is invest in the cops program, invest in local police are sort of the lifeline and backbone of these cities. And before they get to these huge levels of chaos like they're in Minneapolis right now, a lot of these local police like they're doing in Chicago, San Francisco, which Mark, we talked about this, the city has that has waned tremendously over the last decade. Daniel Laurie is working with the federal government, working with his local police force to bring that city back. And so I do think there's a way for us to do it. It has to be collaborative, it has to be a conversation. Hogan and I agree on the goal. We disagree on how to get there, but I think we're all on the same page. We want to have more local police. We want to have more safety in these cities. And we don't want to get to a point where our cities are like Minneapolis. These are great American cities that we don't want to see burned down.
Hogan.
Well, yeah, Mark, great point. Listen, as far as under Obama, we didn't kill people in the streets. Well, there weren't people in the streets and they weren't protesting. They stopped them at the border for the most part. It was Biden who let them all in. But listen, this government in Minnesota, which is so odd, I would argue it's corrupt. I would argue it's ratcheted up the pressure here. Walz himself said that the people of ICE, Border Protection, they're not law enforcement. He said our people are law enforcement. And remember, Walz had no problem keeping American citizens on their porches during COVID by firing rubber bullets, flashbangs, and smoke bombs at American citizens to keep them inside. But for whatever reason here, he's like, nah, it's all good. Let's just go out there and protest from behind his pearly gates there at the governor's mansion, and then saying he's going to mobilize the National Guard against ICE. This is where I think the breakdown kind of begins to happen. Because as I mentioned, other states, this is happening flawlessly. In other cities, this is happening flawlessly because those municipalities and state governments are working with the federal government to enforce laws that are already on the books and, as I mentioned, have been signed into law by both Republican and Democrat administrations. It's this weird place that says, no, we're not doing that. So those clashes are inevitable. They are 100% preventable. These deaths, while tragic, are also 100% preventable, and they shouldn't happen. And as I mentioned, it's easy not to get arrested by the police, and it's easy not to get arrested by law enforcement of any kind, and it's easy not to get shot by law enforcement of any kind if you're not breaking the law, and that's where these problems come into play. The whole thing needs to be brought down because the administration needs to make sure that when they do talk to Walz and the mayor, for example, of Minneapolis, they say, listen, here's the deal. We'll pull some people back. That's fine. But in return, what I want from you guys is following federal law and turning over these people who are child rapists and murderers and burglars and all these things, and we need to get them out of the country. If they work together in that way, theoretically, we get it all done, no problem.
I agree with Hogan in theory, but I think we're at the point now where if you look at these numbers, we've probably deported most of the violent criminals, and right now we're going after people who are not and who we just want to get them out of the country. Let's just be honest about it. If we want all people who have entered this country from other countries out of this country, let's just be honest about it, and let's just be forthright. If you did not come here illegally, we want you out, regardless of your status as a criminal or not. And I think that's what the president is saying. And we should be honest about that. If that's the case, that's the case. The thing that I am concerned about right now is the level of training that these new officers on the ground have gotten. Like I mentioned a second ago, to go through police academy, it takes damn near a year, and it takes a lot to get there. To put these ICE officers, some through weeks of training, that's the reason why they can't intervene in some of these big instances is because they don't know how to. They're not trained to do that. And so I think if we give these individuals better training, give them more than just 6 weeks or 4 weeks or 2 weeks of training, then we can sort of get ahead of some of these killings and these shootings and just better prepare these individuals.
One quick point. You're right. One quick point. Mark, hang on one second. You're right. One quick point, though. The person who pulled the trigger in this instance was an 8-year vet. He'd been there 8 years already. So I understand the need for training, and I agree. We should have a lot of good training. These people should know what's happening. They should be put into situations and tested prior to going out on the streets. But this guy had been there for 8 years. I don't know what his training was before, but still, I mean, it's not just, I think you would agree, Hamid. I don't think there's just one thing that we can use to fix all this. It's a bunch of different things, a bunch of levers need to be pulled.
Mark, one more comment from you if you'd like.
I agree.
Yeah, I just feel, like the police are not getting engaged because they don't have the spine, because they know if they get if they injure one person, they know the city will get burned. They are not backed by the local government. So I see them very, very weak.
Yeah,
and,
it's a tough position, but the mayor, the governor, and the county of government have to deal with it. Mark, thank you. Tell your colleagues at work you're tired because you were on two-way. They'll totally get it. I will just say the administration doesn't want to have the debate that Haima just raised. They don't want to say if they want everybody deported or not. They want to say worst of the worst and all that. And the president's friends in ag and hospitality don't want everybody deported because they'd go out of business. But many people in America do. Many people think everybody came here illegally. If there was a rational system, maybe you'd have a touchback provision. Maybe you'd have comprehensive immigration reform. If you came here illegally, go home, get in line, can come back. If you've got family here, maybe have a preferential treatment. But some people call that amnesty. So we're not having the real debate. But clearly, people are going to be deported under this administration who are not violent criminals. Some, not all of them, but clearly some of that's going to happen. And it would be great to have the debate rather than just having the administration get away with pretending that they're only deporting violent. That everybody should be deported?
No, they said we're going to start with the worst of the worst.
They do, but
70% now are convicted criminals, and then we're going to get the people out.
Understood, but the president has, and his spokespeople hedge on that question. They go back to, we're dealing with the worst of the worst, and then we'll see. Well, but what's their policy? Do they want to deport 20 million people or not?
I think it's pretty obvious they do. I'm not confused by it at all. I'm saying they're starting with
the worst. They don't say it. They don't say it.
Why are we parsing it? We want to do both. We said we want to do both and all of the above. That's what we should just say that.
Yeah. I think that's what people want. I think that's what they want to do. I think they've gone about trying to get this 70% out now, which is what they've been doing.
They say that something that's easy is like a walk in the park. Well, Easier than a walk in the park. Hit the subscribe button, be part of the two-way community, never miss an episode, be part of our conversations. Thank you for your service to America.
And don't forget, you can now listen to the morning meeting and Two Way Tonight on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.